Hello, everyone. Welcome again to another episode of Affordable Fishing. I'm Zach, your host. Got a first episode on a Tackle Tuesday. I'm going to try and start doing these at least once a month, maybe twice a month. I'm going to try my best to cover the water column. We're going to start on top water today. Uh, we're going to work our way down into our finesse baits, your jigs, shaky heads, that sort of thing. Got some good news, as the title of this video is going to say. First thing is, I've got a camera that I'm going to be able to start filming all my fishing excursions from the boat. It's not a GoPro, so it's not waterproof, so anything I'm doing, like trout fishing or any kind of wade fishing, won't be using it for that, obviously. Bad news is I don't have a computer yet that's got any kind of video editing functions on it. So I'll have to get a computer, so I'll be able to do that. But at least I can get the videos filmed. That way, once I get the computer, I can start editing videos for you and post those as we go along. At some point later this year or either next year, I'm going to try and start fishing as a non-boater in the BFL, which is part of FLW's tour series. Probably going to stick to the Bulldog series, which is most of the lakes here in Georgia. I know they fished Lanier twice. I think they fished Lake Sinclair and Eufaula, and I think there's one other lake. So that should be fun. When I start doing those, I'll be using a GoPro, and I'll try and do sort of like a lessons from the pros video, because you fish as a non-boater with professionals, and anything I can learn from these guys, I'll try and pass on to you. So without further ado, let's jump into Tackle Tuesday. We're going to start out with some of the cheaper baits that I have that I'm not a real big fan of. I've got a couple little baits here. I actually got these in some free bag I got. It was actually at a church function. One of the silent auctions. They had a bag full of different types of baits. There was some good baits in it, but these two things really, they're kind of special. If you can see it there, it's got a blade on the back. There's not really any weight to these things. I can't throw them on a bait caster. You have to use them on a spinning reel. There's literally no weight to these things at all. I doubt they weigh 1/8 of an ounce. They're hollow. They're made out of a cheap material. Just not very good. Even the hooks are cheap. I don't even know what brand they are, honestly. I've got this little thing. I've caught a few fish on it. It's a type of popar. If you can see on the gill right here, it's got a hole. It's supposed to leave a bubble trail. It doesn't really do that too well. I have caught fish on it. Works pretty good on small reservoir lakes. Bigger lakes, not too much. I guess it would imitate a thread fin, maybe. Lanier, it's not a real good bait for Lanier. It's to me, it doesn't cast that far either. It's pretty lightweight bait, and it's made out of a cheaper material. With the size of the spots in Lanier, you definitely want to change the hook out on it if you're going to use it on Lanier too much. I usually use this on my kayak when I'm fishing the smaller reservoir lakes, like I said. Oh, all right. Now we're getting into some better baits. Let's just go ahead and cover all the popars. I'm not sure what brand this is. You've probably seen these in any of your tackle shops. Pretty good bait. A little bit of weight to them. I've got another one there that imitates sort of like a thread fin. They cast a long way. They've got the slots in the gills again for leaving a bubble trail, and they're a little bit bigger, so they actually perform pretty well on that. The hooks are a little more sturdy, as you can tell. They work pretty good. They got the feathered tails, which I always like on a popar. Very seldom do I ever throw a popar without some kind of feathering on the rear hook. I've never had any trouble out of the hooks and caught 3 and 4 pound spots on them. pretty regular. The next thing we've got a good old-fashioned Rapala Pop-R, sort of that baby bass color. Most of you guys have seen these before. Most of you have probably thrown them. You know they work real good. They make a good splatter on top of the water, so it imitates running bait fish. Good hooks. I've never had any trouble out of any Rapala brand hooks. You know, I'm not throwing these in lakes where they've got 15 and 16 pound largemouth. But for fishing any lake that's got stripers or large spots in it, works fine. This is my favorite Pop-R here. It's one of the KVD series. I think it's called a Splatter Pop, something like that. This thing performs excellent when you're fishing it, similar to the Rapala. It makes that big splash if you work it a little harder, or you can get it to really finesse and fish it slow and just get that bubble sound where it'll just, if I can imitate it, it's sort of a boop, boop, just that slurping sound. And I've caught big spots on this thing, and I'm talking open water. They've come up from 30 or 40 feet down to hit this thing on especially clear lakes like Chatuge. It works awesome up there. It's really a miracle bait up there, honestly, as far as I'm concerned. Lanier, anything top water on Lanier catches fish. They're that aggressive. Here's one that I don't throw much. Topwater Frog. There are people on Lanier that throw these about once a year. There's one season through the year, and I'm not even sure when it is that they throw these. I've only got this in the tackle box for if I go to a lake where there's some type of grass or good weed line growing. At least I've got that I can have a little bit of faith in. It's just not a native, well, it's a native forage on Lanier. It's just not an abundant forage for these fish. I know some guys flip them under docks. That way they can get under there and not have to worry about the crossbars underneath them. One of my cousins, he likes throwing it. But like I said, it's only a seasonal thing for Lanier. Lakes like Gunnersville, Eufaula, Okeechobee, you see guys throwing these year round, and you just aren't going to catch fish on them on Lanier like that. Next bait we have is one that I think everybody will agree it's one of the better baits out there. Buzz baits. I'm not sure what brand any of these are. I've had this one the longest out of them. As you can tell, it's been wore out pretty good. I use a fluke, usually the original fluke on these, just a small trailer, imitate either a blueback or a large thread fin. This one has a pretty good spin to it. Actually, the blade has been on it. I need to fix that. Next time I go out, I'll have to throw it some and see if I can get it to start swimming right, because that is no good. I've got one, it's a chartreuse. I don't have a skirt on it. I just like throwing a plain fluke on there, or either a paddle tail. Give it that swim bait action plus the blade on it. Now these two I've caught the most fish on out of the buzz baits. They're the same brand. They've got a double blade. They've got the 2-prop on the outside and then a 4-prop blade on the inside. It leaves a really good bubble trail. Makes a lot of racket. As you can tell, I've got a white and a black. As far as buzz baits go, that's about all you need to me. That's just my preference. You might hear some other people say different, but you know, you watch some of the pros videos, most of them are going to tell you white and black just to dumb it down, make it simple. You don't have to complicate a buzzbait. Most everybody has fished a chug bug before, or at least that's what I call it. Jitterbug is what this actually is called. Works pretty good on Lanier. It's not my favorite. Have caught fish on it. I've got faith in it, but you know, these hooks are really strong on it. They make them real well. Even the link on the inside of the lost a word there. Uh, the joint there is pretty well made. Good quality components on the front. I fished it pretty good bit, and there's not a bit of rust on this thing. It's almost like it came out of the package. So, and my favorite, which I have these on every single lake that I go to, Lanier. I like the Super Spook. This is just your standard spook. It's made by Heddon. I'm not a big, I don't have any big concerns about the color on these things. The chrome on the Super Spook works real well. I'm only going to throw that on lakes where they've got either bluebacks or gizzard shad. There have been days even on Lanier. Usually their main forage on Lanier is bluebacks, and they imitate them perfectly. But there have been days where I've gone out with even this size spook, your regular spook or a spook junior, and not been able to catch these fish, and then switch over to a popar and start catching 3 and 4 and 5 pound largemouth. Sometimes they just hone in on those threadfin, and you just got to go size down a little bit. Let the fish tell you what they want. That's just matching the hatch. It's going back to the basics. And they're not always on a top water bite. Lanier, I'm going to throw this over every spot I go to. I'm going to hit every brush pile that I come across that's in 30 foot of water. I'm going to throw a top water lure on it because these fish are that aggressive on Lanier. And usually I'll catch 1 or 2 keepers on a top water no matter what time of year it is. It could be middle of winter, and I usually catch a keeper on a top water. As you can see, I've got another one right here in a perch color. Caught a few fish on it, but I really like these. You know, I don't have a preference because I catch just about as many fish on any of them. But I usually keep it simple. I go with that original rainbow trout color or a chrome. I know guys, they fish the black ones. All the fish can see is the silhouette when it's above them anyway, so you don't really have to worry about the color. Next week, when we get back, or either next month, depending on when I get around to making a video, we're going to cover these little guys. Jerk baits. One of the best baits out there. Pros have been fishing them for a long time. I think they really just hit probably mid-90s and started becoming a more popular bait. But it's one of those baits that's going to come through for you in a pinch. So on the next Tackle Tuesday, we're going to cover that. Hope you'd enjoyed this video, and hope it gave you some good pointers, especially if you're fishing a large reservoir such as Lanier, anything that's got those bluebacks or threadfin. Y'all have a good day, and we'll see you later.